Hey everybody, Dutchsinse here. 1:29 p.m. Central Time on Thursday, September 6th, 2012. And we're looking at Earthquake 3D here, which is a USGS feed of the most recent earthquakes. And you can just see the most recent earthquake, a 2.3 that just struck up here in Alaska. And that's going to show on the map. There's no way for me to get that off there. But I want to show you what's happened over the last 2 weeks. Alright, so in the last 2 weeks, we've had a tremendous amount of earthquakes occur around the planet. And we've seen, even in the mainstream news, much talk about it. So I want to show you the ANSS feed, which will show us everything globally 4.0 and greater. And let me just bring it back down here. And I have it set right now just to show you the 7.0s that occurred, borderline 7.0s, in the last 2 weeks. In the last 14 days, there have been 3 7.0 earthquakes and a 6.8 up near the North Pole, near Svalbard, north of Greenland. Now let me bring this back down just one notch and show you the 6.0s, and then you'll start to see greater activity down here in the Southwest Pacific, Philippines all the way east to Vanuatu. But what stands out to me are the large 7.0s, 3 in 2 weeks period of time, really less than 2 weeks. It's been about 10 days. And we've seen 3 massive earthquakes. Now to show you a greater picture of what's going on, I'm going to bring it down one more notch, down to 5.0s. There we go. 5.0 and greater internationally. Now you can see the cluster areas. We have Southern California, where we had the swarm occur with multiple 5.0 earthquakes and hundreds of 3 and 4.0 earthquakes, which we'll look at in a second. But around each large earthquake area, cluster points. And this says to me these are the areas we need to watch. So if you see any of these areas that are already having 5.0 swarms, that to me says we're going to be seeing larger earthquakes in these areas in the near future. So there's just a few spots that we really are needing to pay attention to. South of New Zealand, north of New Zealand, and really anywhere along the coast of North New Zealand. We might need to watch for a greater than 6.0 earthquake to strike as compensation movement because of all the other large earthquakes that are occurring in this region. Multiple 7.0s, multiple 6.0s, and swarms of 5s. And the spillover effects occurring all the way around Australia, going around the Pacific Ring of Fire, and going over to Europe. Again, it extends northeast across Japan, going up through the Kuril Islands, and coming up here to Alaska, where you start to see a series of smaller earthquakes like this 2.3 up here occur further inland towards Alaska, maybe 4.0s that are occurring up here near the border and towards the Arctic Circle. So, now that you've seen these cluster points around the planet, North Pole, Central America, North America, South Pole, West Pacific, let me take it down one more notch, down to 4.0. Alright, this is showing us everything 4.0 and greater internationally. And then it really starts to get to a point where you can almost not count all the earthquakes on the map. I mean, you could, but it would take a while. But they further accentuate the movement that's occurring and show you the cluster spots to watch. So, look at the West Pacific. Everything has to do with what's going on here. This movement here started at the beginning of 2010 and extended through 2011. And that is the area that's causing our pressure to build on the North American Craton, on Central America, on South America, and spill over into Europe and throughout Russia. The problem point is here. And Japan had the large 9.0 with follow-up activity. We had a series of 7s and 8s all throughout here last year. And now to this year, now it's picking back up in pace. We're starting to see, look at this swarm of 4 and 5.0 earthquakes in the Philippines. Look at the swarm of 4 and 5.0 earthquakes in California, Southern California, and then look at Central America. Look at the Virgin Islands, look at South America. Now, South America has been strangely absent of very large earthquakes over the last several months. You remember last year we had, and the year before, multiple 7 and 8.0 earthquakes that damaged a lot of property, hurt a lot of people down here in South America. Well, now Central America is going, again with these multiple 7.0 earthquakes, multiple 5s, multiple 6s. That says to me we need to watch from Southern California, northwest, up through Cascades, and then back northeast to British Columbia, and then further south from Baja, right down through Oaxaca, Mexico. And we need to watch from there to Southern California, because of the lack of earthquakes that have occurred here greater than 6.0. This movement says we are going to see it. Now, I'd like to remind everybody that they issued tsunami warnings for the Caribbean having to do with this 7.9, and now it's a 7.6 earthquake. They didn't issue them for the Pacific, they issued them for the Caribbean, which means the whole area is experiencing some kind of huge either uplift or sinking. We don't know which is occurring yet because they aren't making that data available. I don't even know if anybody's keeping track of that, if there's any way to know aside from the buoys. So, when you see this movement overall, let me take it down one more notch, and we're going to go look at 3.0s and greater. Let's take it to 2.5. All right, and then we start to get to the point where it's uncountable. There's literally maybe 1,000, 1,500 earthquakes on here or more. And let's look at North America. Along the edge of the North American Craton, Pacific Northwest, extending down here to Yellowstone, where the multiple earthquakes are recorded, and then down here at the fracking operation at Oklahoma, and then southern Missouri. So it's showing the edge of the plate is being pressed. The pressure is coming from the west, not from the east like we're told. We're told that the Mid-Atlantic Ridge presses on the North American plate from the east. However, I would say that the pressure is coming from the west. It's fairly obvious. You're getting a huge amount of earthquakes here, and then it's spilling over and causing more movement along the plate as it's being pushed from the west to the east. And that's causing our buckling effect that occurs here in the Midwest, a blocking from the east, pressure from the west causing buckling along the edge, the southern edge of the North American plate. And they'll tell you they don't know what's causing the New Madrid earthquakes, by the way. So, have a plan, be prepared. I'm not going to get into the charts right now. There's too many to go into. I'll put all the links down below. You guys can go check Yellowstone yourself, check the Midwest nodes yourself, go look at those charts. You can see what the earthquakes look like, and just monitor those each day, because you'll see earthquakes come onto those charts that don't appear on any of these maps. Whether they're even a 0.0 and greater map, it's still not showing because they don't record all the earthquakes. They just do not do that. I don't know why. So, much love, people. The plans you need to have, if you live in a coastal area, have a tsunami plan ready, just in case. But if you're under 200 feet in a coastal area, have an escape plan. Also have food, water, transportation, communications ready to go at a moment's notice, where you can enact that plan within 10 minutes or less. And speaking of 10 minutes or less, let me just go ahead and show you something here. I have this video up on my main channel here on YouTube. And this is the seismic shock waves coming in from the Costa Rica earthquake across the United States. And they have a timestamp down below. And you can watch the time. Let me go ahead and full screen this here and bring it back. So starting at 1445, going to 1455, the whole event takes approximately 10 minutes for the massive shock wave to arrive. The first blast, the first shock wave, takes approximately 3 to 5 minutes to get from Costa Rica up to North America. So that's about the amount of time you have to prepare. If you hear about a large earthquake, you have just a few minutes before that shock wave arrives, especially if it's close. Say a large earthquake did strike off the southwest coast of Mexico, and it produced a tsunami. You would have the time it takes for a jetliner to fly from Mexico to Los Angeles for that wave to arrive from Mexico to Los Angeles. So you're talking about the speed of a wave traveling across an open body of water at multiple hundreds of miles per hour. Once it reaches the shore, that's where it slows down, and it draws the wave back out to sea, and then it doubles over on itself, basically, and comes ashore. And that causes your multiple waves to come inland. So you only have maybe an hour, 2 hours at the most, if it were to strike down here, and that's for the wave to come all the way up this region. If it struck right offshore, you're only looking at a few minutes. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but you need to have a plan and be ready and know your elevations around you so you know where to go in case something happens. And that's just if you live in the coastal areas. If you live in the Midwest, look at the number of seismic stations they have placed out here. Now you're telling me they aren't planning for a large earthquake to detect? So this means any one of the states where you see this large number of seismic stations needs to have a plan and be prepared. Any one of you. If you live in Florida, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, also Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota. Any one of these regions here needs to be prepared. Have an earthquake preparedness plan ready to go at a moment's notice. And that's because we are at a point where there's a tremendous amount of seismic unrest occurring. It's causing problems at the salt domes down in Louisiana. That's not my assessment. That is theirs. Tremendous underground forces, quote them, are causing the salt dome collapses. So much love, guys. Hang in there. Have a plan and be prepared, okay? Cheers.